Well, Boris Johnson's resignation has cast doubt over what aspects of his government's agenda will live on. And now one mayor has called on Conservative MPs vying to be the party's next party leader and Prime Minister to fully commit to levelling up in red wall and left behind areas. Joining us now, Teesside Valley Mayor, that's Ben Houchen. Hello to you, Mr Houchen. Thanks for joining us on the programme. What do you want to hear from these candidates?
Well, this morning I've written to the leadership contenders because we're talking a lot about tax cuts. There's obviously an internal battle within the Conservative Party for the next leader. But what we're not hearing is what they're going to do and whether they're going to recommit to levelling up. That was a key policy of the Boris Johnson government. It's one of the things that led to many people voting Conservative for the first time ever. It obviously started to build what is now that trendy term, the red wall. And I've asked that there are a minimum number of principles that these leadership contenders sign up to make sure that this fantastic policy and something that's actually really needed to bring the rest of the UK together, that they sign up to these minimum number of principles. Actually, like I say, as a minimum, I hope they can go further and develop a very strong levelling up policy. But at the moment, we're not hearing anything from any of the contenders. And I would hope that MPs, before they vote on Wednesday, will be asking these questions, because there are many of those MPs that have their seat because of the levelling up policy that Boris Johnson championed.
Who are you looking at? Who's taking your fancy at the moment?
Well, at the moment, nobody's replied to the letter, and my concern at the minute is making sure that largely the north, but also other parts of left behind areas across the country are fully supported. I think the levelling up agenda is absolutely key to achieving that, and I'll be deciding on who I support depending on the responses and who gives the best responses to develop that policy, and taking, like I say, areas like mine in Teesside who've been left behind for many, many decades. What is a new Prime Minister going to do to be able to support an area like ours, not just Teesside, but across the whole of the north of England? And as I said, when there was this whole debacle going on about whether we should get rid of the Prime Minister Boris Johnson or not, my concern is this agenda could be on the back burner. And like I say, over the last few days, all we've heard about is tax cuts, and they're extremely important. And I'm sure that people will make their mind up about that. But there is much more to running a government than just tax cuts. And I think the levelling up agenda is something that will define the next general election.
I'm guessing you also want the final two candidates to come up to the region and talk to the local people there.
Absolutely. And I agree with many people who've said that what we actually need to make sure is that this isn't just a coronation. What we can't have is a stitch up between the final two candidates, and then the members and the wider country can't see what the two candidates have to offer. And as we did when Boris Johnson was selected as Prime Minister, there should be a number of hustings across the country. People should be able to form their views before deciding on who the new Prime Minister is going to be.
OK, should the new Prime Minister be a northerner?
I'm less concerned about where they're from. I mean, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is not from the north of England, but is arguably one of the biggest champions of the north of England for many, many decades. It depends on the policy of the person. Like I say, that in the letter that I've written, I want to see the contender who is successful commit to keeping a Secretary of State responsible for levelling up. I want to see them commit to more devolution for other parts of England and potentially parts of the UK as well, because it's been hugely successful in places like Teesside. I want more powers to existing mayors. I would say that, wouldn't I, being a mayor in England. I also want the government to commit to really important large infrastructure projects, which I think send a huge statement to communities and the public across the UK, like Northern Powerhouse Rail. I think we need to go further, and we need to get east-west connectivity across the north as being much, much stronger. So there's a huge amount that needs to be done. And I hope that whoever is successful commits to that agenda. That's going to be largely deciding where my support goes, and whether they come from Uxbridge, whether they come from central London, or whether they come from Middlesbrough. It doesn't matter as long as they've got the right policies for the country.
Just before I let you go, we're almost out of time. If Boris Johnson could stand again, would you vote for him?
I'm hugely sad and disappointed that this Prime Minister is going. I've always been a huge supporter. There's no way from getting away from that. I think he's done a huge amount for the north of England. I think he's starting a really interesting agenda. I think he's attracted people to politics and to vote for the Conservatives that would never have considered voting for us before. And it's fair to say that under this Prime Minister, my area that I represent has done extremely well. So it's a sad day when I see this Prime Minister go, and hopefully the next Prime Minister will be able to do as much as they can to fill his boots. And, that's yet to be seen.